Chapter 30, Losing Maplewood Park. Summer vacation ended and it was time to go back to school. I was a sophomore now. I didn't know how recognizable I'd become as a Latin king during the summer. Rosie, the girl of my dreams, and I were in the same homeroom again. For some reason, that really bothered her. It was a tradition for the kings who went to Clemente to show up wearing their gang colors on the first day of school. I wore black Converse All-Stars with gold laces, black baggy pants, and a Pittsburgh Pirates t-shirt. Black and gold from head to toe. I thought I was impressive and cool, but Rosie didn't think so. "Hi Rosie," I said. "Stay the hell away from me," she responded as she walked off. The King brothers and everybody else who heard her laughed and teased me. Normally, I would have looked for a rock to crawl under, but I had smoked a joint on my way to school, so I was able to laugh it off. "Before the year is over, you'll be mine," I yelled at Rosie. "Fuck you," she responded. I tried to stay high even while I was at school. Being high gave me confidence to continue my relentless pursuit of Rosie, regardless of what she said or did. When I wasn't high, I was too timid to even look at her, much less to talk to her. I didn't like that, so I made sure I smoked a joint on my way to school every day. I was more interested in being popular than making good grades. After school, I would hang out with the Kings on Cadetsy and Armitage, have sex with Cubana, spray paint the King's insignia, or fight. There were also a few instances when I was present at major confrontations between the disciples and the Latin Kings of Maplewood Park. Many kids who lived around Maplewood Park went to school at Von Humboldt. The disciples took advantage of that fact and began recruiting these kids. Soon there were just as many disciples living around Maplewood Park as there were kings. Only the kings didn't know of this disadvantage, nor did they care. Suddenly, the Maplewood Park's Kings' membership became depleted due to incarceration. The cops were somehow finding out where guns and drugs were stashed and who had stashed them. The homes of the leaders of the Maplewood Park Latin Kings began to get raided on a consistent basis. The Maplewood Park Kings became weak. That's when the disciples made their move. The disciples began to make their presence known after a second raid on the Kings' leaders. That raid landed 3 of the main heads of that section in jail for possession of drugs and firearms. Latin Kings from all sections took the initiative to protect that hood from being taken over. Meanwhile, the Latin disciples began moving more of their boys into the neighborhood. The few Latin kings and queens who still lived there, including Morena, moved out. Those who stayed became Latin disciples. Still, Latin kings from other areas tried desperately to keep Maplewood Park a Latin king section. This included the kings from Cadetsy and Armitage. Although the leaders of the Maplewood Park Latin Kings got penitentiary time, 3 others who were locked up with them were released. They returned to the only home they knew, only to find out that they now lived in hostile territory. 2 of those kings were brothers whose families still lived across the street from Maplewood Park. Their father had been one of the original Latin Kings and was doing time for murder. The brothers were called Jawbreaker and Mad Dog. They were both in their early 20s and had been kings all their lives. Jawbreaker was the older of the 2. He was an alcoholic with a very violent temper. Jawbreaker had tattoos all over his body, mostly gang related. He had been in and out of jail and was on parole for aggravated assault. Mad Dog was more down to earth. He didn't drink a lot, but he loved to smoke weed. Mad Dog had also been in and out of jail several times. He had beaten 2 murder charges because the witness against him never showed up in court. The brothers were determined to take Maplewood Park back for the Latin Kings. From the day they were released and returned home, they made their presence known in Maplewood Park. Kings from other sections were also out there with them. The disciples were not intimidated. They grouped up in numbers to show their force and made it a habit to be there at all times of the day and night. A deadly confrontation was unavoidable. One Friday night, the situation exploded. I went by Cadetsy and Armitage looking for Cubana. The brothers there told me that she had gone with Morena and Loco to Maplewood Park. I knew walking into that area was dangerous, so I asked Lalo to drive me there. Lalo gave another King brother the keys to his car so he could take me. The King brother was called Dino. Dino was tall and well built with long black hair and dark brown eyes. He was very handsome and had the reputation of being a ladies' man. Dino acted cool and was soft-spoken, just like a mama's boy. However, in reality, Dino was a master con artist and a stick-up man. Dino gave me a gun and advised me to start shooting at the first sign of trouble. The gun was just like the one I took from Loco the night I shot at the gangsters. It was black, metal, square, flat, and kinda heavy. It was ready to shoot. Just take off the safety, Dino said. I looked at the gun, wondering where the hell the safety was and what I was supposed to do with it. Do you have a joint? I asked Dino. Give me the piece, man, Dino said as he took the gun from me, clicked a little lever on it, and handed it back. Don't worry about getting high now. We're almost there, Dino said. When we got to Maplewood Park, the hostilities had already begun. Jawbreaker, Mad Dog, Loco, Morena, Cubana, and a couple other kings and queens were outside exchanging obscenities with a crowd of disciples. Dino drove past the hostile mobs and went through the alley behind Mad Dog and Jawbreaker's house. We parked in the alley and walked to the front. We did the customary handshaking. I kissed Cubana and then began looking to get high. I was scared as shit. I desperately wanted to just leave that scene. I went there to get Cubana, but she didn't want to leave. She was interested in seeing and being a part of what was going to happen. Finally, I went inside the house where I found beer on the table. Jawbreaker and Mad Dog's mother, little sister, and Jawbreaker's 2 sons were in the bedroom watching television as if nothing was happening. I sat inside the house, drank 2 beers like I was drinking water, then went back outside. The hostilities were getting more serious as it grew darker. Loco noticed some disciples pulling guns from hiding places and said, "It's time to get busy." One by one, we all went in the house. Quédate en el cuarto y cierra la puerta. Stay in the room and close the door. I know, my Spanish is messed up. Mad Dog told his mother. No dices que los niños salir de el cuarto. Don't let the kids come out of the room. I probably didn't even say that right. Jawbreaker kept bringing guns out from the back room and handing them out to the kings and queens. I still had Dino's gun. I pulled it out ready to use it. I was on my 4th beer now and was feeling brave and macho. I sat on the floor along the wall just beside the window. Loco sat next to me and told me not to get too crazy. Stay down and out of sight, Loco said. Take care of Cubanita. Cubana sat next to me, kissed me, and held my hand tightly. She was obviously scared. I had to be brave and strong for both of us. Then all hell broke loose. Those fuckers are spreading out, man. They're up to something, Dino said as he peeked out the window. Chants of Disciple and King Killer were heard from outside. Llama la policía! Llama la policía! Call the police! Call the police! Jawbreaker's mother yelled as she peered out the bedroom window, barely revealing her head. Close the door and lay down on the floor with the kids, Jawbreaker shouted to her. Crash of glass breaking was hard as a brick came flying in through the front window. Motherfucker King Love, Mad Dog shouted as he began shooting at the disciples with the shotgun. Shots were fired back and forth. A queen got hit in the arm. She screamed in pain and threw herself on the floor next to Cubana and me. I had not yet fired a shot, nor had I attempted to. I was scared. Even though I was high, I was still scared stiff. The shooting only went on for about 2 minutes, but it seemed like hours. In the bedroom, the screams of Jawbreaker's mother and her grandchildren could be heard. King Love Almighty, Mad Dog shouted while he shot repeatedly in the direction of the disciples. Oh shit, I'm hit, one of the kings screamed as he fell to the floor holding his face. Ah, help me, help me. He lay screaming while bullets kept flying all around him. He had been shot in the eye and was bleeding profusely. The shooting stopped. Sirens could be heard in the distance. Let's get the fuck out of here, Dino advised Loco. Come on, little Loco, let's go, Dino shouted. I grabbed Cubana by the hand and pulled her with me as I ducked my way through the house to the back door. Along the way, I stepped over the king who had been shot and slipped on his blood. Jawbreaker's mother was crying hysterically as Mad Dog tried to comfort her. Mostly everybody was just scrambling to get out of the house before the police arrived. Everybody was able to get out except for Jawbreaker, Mad Dog, and those who were shot. The king and queen survived their gunshot wounds. The king brother did, however, lose his eye. They were both incarcerated after being released from the hospital. 3 disciples were shot during that battle, and one of them died. Jawbreaker and Mad Dog were charged with these shootings and were sentenced to time in the penitentiary. Cubana, Morena, Dino, and I got out unscratched. Loco had a cut on his left cheek and several on his right arm from the flying glass. The disciples continued to hang out at Maplewood Park. The increased police activity followed this battle kept the Latin kings from doing anything to retaliate. As a result, the Latin disciples gained sole control of Maplewood Park. Walking to Cadedsy and Armitage up North Avenue or even riding the bus that way became dangerous. I couldn't go to Cadedsy and Armitage as frequently as I wanted to unless I got a ride from someone or was high enough not to care. That slowed down my gang activity somewhat, but not completely. Jawbreaker and Mad Dog's family was the first one I met where gangbanging was a family affair. Their father was a king and the sons and daughters were all kings and queens. This kind of family existed in every neighborhood I ever hung around in. The members of these families are usually violent, promiscuous drug users and eager to get everybody else involved in their actions. Sadly, this type of family still exists in many neighborhoods. Since I couldn't get to Cadetsy and Armitage as frequently as I wanted to, I started hanging out with the Spanish Lords. At this time, the Spanish Cobras were making a big move on the Lords and were making their presence known on a daily basis. In turn, the Spanish Lords began to hang out on Lemoyne and Claremont streets exclusively. In essence, they were relinquishing Tule to the Cobras. Clemente High School was still dominated by Latin Kings and their associates. In fact, the only thing that kept the Cobras from completely moving into the Tule area was the presence of the Kings on Clemente. Gang-related violence escalated at Clemente because of the ongoing wars. King brothers, including myself, were worried about the gang affiliations of others more than we were worried about our studies. We walked around school looking for any sign that would set someone apart as a member of a rival gang. Everything from the color of their clothing to the marks on their notebooks was immediately questioned. Those who didn't have the appropriate answers to our questions were usually beaten. The real impact of our actions was a lack of education within the Puerto Rican community.